Hey there, I'm Ari from the Tech Buyers Guru, and this is my $2,000 premium gaming PC build guide for early 2020. This build starts with a Ryzen 7 3800X processor from AMD. And you may be wondering, well, where's Intel? And the actual answer is, I have no idea where Intel is. We've been waiting for its next-gen CPU forever. It's rumored to be coming sometime in spring. Don't count on it. And more importantly, even if it does arrive, it's on a brand new socket, the socket 1200, which means if you buy a motherboard today based on 1151, you're going to be out of luck in terms of upgrades. So I don't recommend Intel to anyone right now. And this is coming from someone who's running this video off of a Core i9-9900K processor. So I get that Intel makes some good processors. Now's not the time to buy them. So the Ryzen 7 3800X, I really like this one for this build because you've got 8 cores, 16 threads, you've got boost speeds up to 4.5 gigahertz, and although it does cost a little bit more than the 3700X, like typically about $30 more, consider that in the scope of the entire budget for your build, $2,000. So it's $30 more, that's like 1.5% of your total expenditure, and it's about 3% faster than a 3700X. So I think that's pretty good returns. I like the 3800X if you're spending $2,000 on a PC. In terms of the motherboard, of course, you're going to get an X570 motherboard to get the latest features, in particular PCI Gen 4. I like Asus at this point. Now, typically, I really like Gigabyte in the price range where I think we should be operating here for this build. Around $200 is what I'm targeting for a $2,000 PC build. But, you know, Gigabyte's just not been that active. They were pretty slow to the market with X570 boards, and Asus is just leading the way. Now, in terms of the video card, well, look, you're spending $2,000 on a gaming PC, you want a lot of performance. Really, the only option right now is the RTX 2080 Super. It comes in about $700 to $750, but I think you should actually spend on the higher end of that range just to get a better cooler, and MSI makes some really fantastic coolers. It's got its Frozer line of coolers. They're super quiet, super effective, will allow your 2080 Super to run at high boost all the time. So I think it's worth spending like $20 or $30 more for that version rather than like a cut rate reference version at $700 or $710. Moving on to RAM, I really like Corsair's RAM. I've got it right here, DDR4 3200 RAM. It looks great in white, so I'm actually recommending that right now. It typically costs the same as black. At my most recent check, it was $5 more, but I think it just looks so slick with those white heat sinks, and then you get the RGB lit top on there. I think it looks really, really cool, so I recommend that. There's really nobody else to consider at this point in the RAM market. Corsair just dominates in terms of both price, performance, and then looks too, so kind of win-win-win. I'm going to Corsair as well for the SSD. This tiny little guy is its MP600 Gen 4 drive. This thing's amazing. Costs right around $200, and unlike some of the smaller name competitors, it comes with a really, really beefy heatsink, which is extremely important for a Gen 4 drive. When you're transferring at 5,000 megabytes per second, your drive's going to get pretty hot. And Corsair has integrated this really slick, high-profile heatsink in here to really dissipate a lot of heat. It's about the biggest heatsink you'll find on an SSD, and I think it's really good looking. And more importantly, you're only paying like $10 or $20 more than some of the no-name brands, and you're getting that heatsink, and plus you're getting Corsair's name. You know, and when you're talking about data, you want that customer support that Corsair can provide. They're not going to mess around. Look, I don't want anything to happen to my MP600 or yours, but Corsair's going to have your back if it does go bad. And I believe this comes with a 5-year warranty, and that's something to pay for. All right, like you want your data to be backed up and you want your drive to be replaced if it fails within 5 years, and that's what you get with the MP600. I think this is an awesome drive. So kudos to Corsair to being one of the first to the market in the Gen 4 with a PCI Gen 4 drive. I mean, I think a lot of other guys, Samsung, hint, failed. They just didn't see that AMD was going to take over the motherboard market with its Gen 4 compatible X570 chipset. So pretty amazing stuff. Go with Corsair for the solid state drive. In terms of the power supply, I again go with Corsair, and partly it's because it looks awesome. This white power supply, RM850X, even includes white cables. Yes, that's in the box. This looks so sweet. It costs about $5 more than their black power supply, but hey, it's awesome looking. The other thing I should mention about the X570 chipset and how you power it up is you need 2 EPS cables, and watch out for some of the older and some of the cheaper power supplies out there. you can get some pretty high-end, or I should say high wattage power supplies that don't have two EPS connectors because they were made like years and years ago. Every X570 board requires two EPS connectors to get full power to your CPU. So don't mess around and get some cheaper old 850 watt power supply just because it's discounted. Get the real deal. This is Corsair's, one of Corsair's latest 850 watt units. It's a great unit. Now, in terms of the cooler, this is so easy. Scythe Fuma 2. I just reviewed this on the channel and it absolutely blew me away. At $60, it is by far the best cooler. And frankly, it's my favorite cooler regardless of price because it's so compatible with everything. It doesn't block your RAM. Look, I like Noctua coolers a lot, but most of them would sit right over these sweet looking RAM heatsinks. And then what's the point of having RGB RAM? Well, this one is offset back a little bit so it won't block your RAM slots. And furthermore, it can work in any case, including cases with kind of low headroom for tall coolers. This one comes in 155 millimeters. Speaking of the case though, we're going for a really sweet case, the new LanCool 2 from Lian Li. And look, if you're not familiar with Lian Li, I don't blame you. They've been kind of laying low for like, what, a decade? But if you go back to the early 2000s, Lian Li was synonymous with a high-end case. If you were getting a high-end case in the year 2005, you basically only had one choice, Lian Li. Everyone knew Lian Li. They made the best cases in the market. And of course, the market has completely changed in the past 15 years since Lian Li dominated. But there's one thing that I see in the LanCool 2, or frankly, two things I see in the LanCool 2. First, the name. It's borrowing one of its historic names, which is kind of an ode to the past. Most people won't even know what a LAN party is, but that's what the LanCool name comes from. But more importantly, it's compartmentalized. And back in 2005, when they innovated this, they had like 10 compartments inside their cases. Every hard drive had its own compartment. There were fans in every compartment. It was goofy. It was like a puzzle. Well, we don't want that today. We want great airflow. But what they've done is they've compartmentalized the PSU section. Whereas everybody else has this PSU shroud, which actually makes it kind of difficult to cable up your system, kind of just for the purposes of aesthetics. It blocks those cables. Well, they've innovated 4 doors on the LanCool 2. You've got 2 sweet hinged glass doors, and you've got 2 flip down doors for your power supply and hard drive area. This is fantastic for accessibility. It just makes perfect sense. Those PSU shrouds, as much as I like the look of them, they do get in the way. They make it harder to cable up your system and install your power supply. Well, Lian Li has innovated, bringing back a concept, the compartmentalization of PC cases that it created so many years ago, and applied it to a modern PC where it makes a ton of sense. So the only thing that's bad about this case is it's hard to buy. Like a lot of Lian Li's latest offerings, these things are selling like hotcakes. You may have to back order it. I'd really love to be able to recommend the white model, but I haven't seen it in stock. So I'll probably be linking to the black model here, but definitely the white model is the way to go if you can get it in stock. So that pretty much covers everything that is going into this PC. Like I said, the budget is just around $2,000, and it does include Windows 10. So if you add this all up and say, hey, I'm way under $2,000, it's because, well, Windows 10 costs about $130 to $140 now, and I do include that in budget because guess what? You need an OS. So I always include that in my budgets. You'll see all the links below to all the components I recommend, and I'll also link to my website where I have a constantly updated build guide. By the way, I should say that I've been publishing these build guides since 2013, so I do know the market pretty well. And the $2,000 gaming PC is one of my most popular builds ever. It's one of the first ones I published back in 2013, and I've got a lot of people who bought it over the years. And of course, it's completely different today in 2020 than it was in 2013, but I've been following the market the whole time. So check out my website if you want to see that and actually look at some of the archives and see how this thing has changed over the past 7 years. Of course, if you have any questions about this build, post them down below. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and I will catch you soon.